Canada is facing a senseless, harmful trade war. People are feeling anxious. They're worried about their jobs, the cost of food, the cost of living. And over the past several weeks, what we have done is to act and have convened leaders from business and laborers to build Toronto's economic action plan.
I've been clear, personally I've been clear, the ministers behind me, I think to an individual, when asked, have been clear that we will never, ever, in any way, shape or form, be part of the United States. America is not Canada. Look at the ceremony we just had. You could not have had that ceremony. You would not have that ceremony in America. Look at the cabinet behind me. You would not have that cabinet in America. You do not have that cabinet in America. We are a very fundamentally different country.
Good evening. As the North American trade war marches on, we're getting a better picture of just how much it could cost you, the consumer. This week, Ottawa hit back on steel and aluminum tariffs by retaliating with levies on billions of dollars in U.S. goods. The reality now setting in for businesses and shoppers. CTV's Jeremy Sharon starts us off.
They're already teeing off in the capital, but there's a new capital T on golfers' minds to start this season: tariffs.
It is hard to get off your mind, especially when you're holding a golf club and, like you said, golf balls that will cost more.
That's due to retaliatory tariffs Canada imposed this week on steel and aluminum products and a list of American goods totaling nearly $30 billion.
You are not going to change your mind.
No, I'm not. Look, we've been ripped off for years, and we're not going to be ripped off anymore. No, I'm not going to bend at all. Aluminum or steel or cars. We're not going to bend. We've been ripped off as a country for many, many years. We've been subjected to costs that we shouldn't be subjected to. In the case of Canada, we're spending $200 billion a year to subsidize Canada. I love Canada. I love the people of Canada. I have many friends in Canada. The great one, Wayne Gretzky, the great. Hey, how good is Wayne Gretzky? He's the great one. But we have, I know many people from Canada that are good friends of mine. But, you know, the United States can't subsidize a country for $200 billion a year. We don't need their cars. We don't need their energy. We don't need their lumber. We don't need anything that they give. We do it because we want to be helpful. But it comes a point when you just can't do that. You have to run your own country. And to be honest with you, Canada only works as a state. It doesn't. We don't need anything they have. As a state, it would be one of the great states anyway. This would be the most incredible country visually. If you look at a map, they drew an artificial line right through it between Canada and the U.S., just a straight artificial line. Somebody did it a long time ago, many, many decades ago, and makes no sense. It's so perfect as a great and cherished state. Keeping "O Canada," the national anthem. I love it. I think it's great. Keep it. But it'll be for the state, one of our greatest states. Maybe our greatest state. But why should we subsidize another country for $200 billion? It costs us $200 billion a year. And again, we don't need their lumber. We don't need their energy. We have more than they do. We don't need anything. We don't need their cars. I'd much rather make the cars here. And there's not a thing that we need. Now, there'll be a little disruption, but it won't be very long. But they need us. We really don't need them. And we have to do this. I'm sorry. We have to do this, yes.
Is Canada actually winning the trade war against America? With staggering tariffs, 12.6 billion Canadian dollars on steel, 3 billion Canadian dollars on aluminum, and 14.2 billion Canadian dollars targeting politically sensitive U.S. goods, this conflict is reshaping North American economics. While most expected Canada to back down from U.S. pressure, something remarkable is happening. American industries are in panic mode, like a poker player who suddenly realizes their bluff has been called. Canadian officials remain firm, standing their ground against their powerful neighbor. This standoff is rapidly becoming the biggest economic story of the year, with manufacturing giants frantically calling Washington as profits plummet. What hidden leverage does Canada hold that has the White House scrambling for solutions? Economic bloodbath. How Canada's 30 billion Canadian dollar tariff bomb is devastating Wall Street. Wall Street is in complete meltdown mode, and it's all because of Canada's devastating economic counterpunch. What started as a minor trade dispute has erupted into financial chaos that has investors running for the exits. The market bloodbath we're witnessing right now has caught even the most seasoned analysts completely off guard. The panic on Wall Street is palpable. Trading floors that normally maintain some semblance of order have descended into frantic activity as Canada's massive 30 billion Canadian dollar tariff package slams into the American economy with surgical precision. Major investment firms watch in horror as the Dow Jones plummets, with trading screens turning blood red across the financial district. This isn't just another market correction. This is a targeted economic assault that's leaving financial experts stunned. The market reaction was swift and brutal. Within hours of Canada's announcement, stocks began plummeting across multiple sectors as investors desperately tried to understand just how deep the damage would go. Trading algorithms triggered massive sell-offs, accelerating the downward spiral as human traders struggled to keep up with the rapidly deteriorating situation. Auto manufacturers have been absolutely devastated by this trade war. Ford and General Motors are watching their stock values crater in real time as they face the double whammy of rising production costs from both the steel and aluminum tariffs. These manufacturing giants, already struggling with competitive pressures, now face the nightmare scenario of dramatically higher input costs they simply can't absorb. The irony is particularly bitter for American steel producers. These companies initially celebrated Trump's protective tariffs as their salvation, popping champagne and forecasting record profits. Now they're watching in horror as their own stock values collapse under the weight of Canada's perfectly calculated countermeasures. With their access to a crucial Canadian export market effectively destroyed overnight, their initial celebration has turned to desperation. Quick pause. If you're enjoying this video, we'd really appreciate it if you could like and subscribe to the channel. Did you know over 98% of viewers watch without subscribing? Subscribing is free, and it helps us create more content you love. So go ahead and hit that button. It only takes a second. Thanks so much, and now, back to the video. What's truly frightening for the broader economy is how quickly these effects are rippling outward. It's not just the directly targeted industries feeling the pain. The entire manufacturing sector is now under immense pressure. Supply chain disruptions are threatening production schedules nationwide as companies scramble to secure alternative material sources at dramatically higher prices. Investor confidence, already shaky from recent market volatility, is now completely shattering. Financial analysts who typically maintain measured tones in their market forecasts are now releasing increasingly dire projections about the long-term economic damage this trade war will inflict. The consensus is clear. This is not a temporary disruption, but potentially the beginning of sustained economic damage. What makes this market crash particularly dangerous is the strategic calculation behind Canada's tariffs. These weren't random retaliatory measures. They were precision-guided economic missiles designed to maximize both economic and political damage. Canadian officials carefully selected targets with significant lobbying power and influence in Washington, ensuring the pain would quickly translate into political pressure. Ford's unusually blunt statement captures the growing corporate backlash. President Trump's tariffs are a disaster for the U.S. economy. They're making life more expensive for American families and businesses. This dramatic reversal from a company that once supported stronger trade protections signals a dangerous fracturing of support that could have far-reaching implications. The numbers tell a devastating story. The S&P 500 has hemorrhaged billions in market value since Canada's announcement, with the manufacturing and automotive sectors experiencing some of their worst trading days in years. Portfolio managers across the country are watching in horror as retirement accounts and investment funds rapidly lose value with no clear bottom in sight. Financial experts are warning that we're only seeing the initial impact. The real economic damage will come as companies face impossible choices: absorb unsustainable cost increases, pass them on to already stretched consumers, or cut jobs to maintain margins. All three options spell trouble for an economy that was supposedly booming. The power play. Inside Mark Carney's economic warfare strategy. Behind this economic chaos stands one man orchestrating Canada's entire financial assault on America. Mark Carney isn't just retaliating against Trump's tariffs. He's executing a calculated psychological warfare campaign that has White House officials absolutely panicking. Unlike his predecessors who typically sought compromise with America, Canada's incoming Prime Minister is breaking the traditional Canadian playbook. Carney is weaponizing his extensive financial expertise to wage economic battle with precision that's leaving Washington completely stunned. Carney's background as the former governor of the Bank of England gives him exceptional leverage. During his tenure there, he navigated Britain through Brexit turbulence by strategically managing interest rates and currency interventions, skills he's now deploying against America. This international experience provides him with strategic insights into global markets that no previous Canadian leader possessed. The true brilliance of Carney's strategy lies in its political calculation. These aren't random tariffs, they're surgical strikes against Trump's political fortress. His tariffs specifically target industries in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Michigan, states where factory closures directly threaten Trump's re-election hopes. The political significance of these targeted states cannot be overstated, said one Canadian official speaking on condition of anonymity. These regions form the backbone of Trump's electoral base. When factories shut down in these areas, it directly threatens his political survival. Even more devastating is Carney's targeting of agricultural sectors in Iowa and Wisconsin, states with powerful farming lobbies historically supporting Trump. As financial pressure mounts on farmers, their loyalty to Trump's trade policies is already cracking. These precision-guided economic missiles are creating fissures within Trump's administration. Reports from Washington indicate growing divisions in the White House economic team, paralyzing their ability to form a coherent response to Canada's counterpunch. Washington clearly didn't anticipate the comprehensive nature of Carney's three-pronged approach. First, he's inflicting immediate economic pain through targeted tariffs. Second, he's calculating the political fallout by focusing on swing states. Third, perhaps most devastating, he's exploiting emerging divisions between Trump and American business leaders. The steel and aluminum producers who initially championed Trump's protectionist policies now watch in horror as their access to crucial Canadian markets evaporates. Their frantic calls to Washington are met with more threats of escalation that further terrify investors. This is just phase one of Carney's strategy. Canadian officials are already developing their next wave of economic counterattacks. Sources close to Carney reveal plans for expanded agricultural tariffs and new restrictions on cross-border services that would further devastate American companies. "Make no mistake," said a senior Canadian trade official, "we've only deployed our opening salvo. If the White House continues down this path of economic aggression, our Phase 2 response will target even more politically sensitive sectors." This strategy creates paralyzing uncertainty for American businesses, not knowing which industries might be targeted next or how severe the economic damage might become. Consequently, this fear is spreading through multiple sectors of the American economy. While Trump publicly threatens to increase tariffs to 50%, his economic team remains deeply divided. Some advisors push for immediate negotiations to end the trade war before further damage occurs, while hardliners demand even more aggressive measures against Canada. Carney's masterful exploitation of these divisions demonstrates his sophisticated understanding of political pressure points and economic vulnerabilities. By forcing Trump to choose between appeasing his political base and protecting the broader economy, Carney has created an impossible dilemma for the White House: the electricity shock, Ontario's nuclear option against American consumers. While Carney's financial maneuvers cripple America's industrial heartland, Ontario Premier Doug Ford has just unleashed what energy analysts are calling the nuclear option in this escalating economic war. In a shocking move that nobody saw coming, Ford has imposed a devastating 25% surcharge on electricity exports flowing into the United States, instantly putting 1.5 million American households and businesses at risk of crippling power bills. The trade war has now entered dangerous territory, targeting the very electricity Americans depend on daily. Ontario doesn't want this trade war, but we won't back down until it's over, Ford declared, making it crystal clear that Canada is done playing nice. Ford is leveraging vital infrastructure Americans rely on to stay warm, keep their businesses running, and literally keep the lights on. The financial damage hits American wallets immediately. Ford's electricity surcharge extracts a staggering $278,000 daily from consumers across Michigan, Minnesota, and New York, over $100 million annually being drained from Americans already struggling with inflation and skyrocketing costs. The truly terrifying part? This is merely the opening move. Ford has made an unprecedented threat that if Trump escalates further, he'll completely shut off electricity exports to the United States. This power blackout scenario could leave entire communities frozen in darkness, like a northern winter without heat. A frightening prospect for families dependent on reliable electricity for basic needs. Energy security experts warn this could turn deadly during extreme weather events like the polar vortex that repeatedly strikes the Midwest. When temperatures plummet to life-threatening levels, elderly residents, hospitals, and essential services in these northern states depend on consistent power supplies that may no longer be reliable. Ford's strategy brilliantly exploits America's overlooked vulnerability. Significant portions of the northern United States have grown dependent on Canadian electricity imports, especially during peak demand when domestic generation can't meet consumption needs. Manufacturing facilities face an impossible situation. Already operating on razor-thin margins due to steel and aluminum tariffs, they must now absorb energy costs that threaten to shut down production entirely. Industry analysts warn this could be the final blow, forcing factories to either lay off workers or relocate operations. Trump's response reveals the White House's alarm. The president has threatened to declare a national emergency on electricity, a drastic step typically reserved for catastrophic infrastructure failures. But energy policy experts doubt whether emergency declarations can solve the immediate supply crisis facing these regions. What makes this situation particularly dangerous is the coordination between Canadian governments. While Ford controls Ontario's electricity exports, his move perfectly complements Carney's federal strategy. Together, they've created a perfect storm targeting politically sensitive regions ahead of crucial elections. The timing couldn't be worse for American consumers. With winter approaching, households face potentially 25% higher electricity bills during peak consumption season. For families already struggling with inflation, this unexpected surge in utility costs could force impossible choices between heating homes and other essential expenses. Canadian officials calculated this with surgical precision, targeting states where power shortages create maximum political pressure while generating revenue to support Canadian industries hurt by U.S. tariffs. This power play isn't just draining American wallets. It's effectively forcing Americans to subsidize Canada's economic resilience against Trump's trade war. This trade war has now grown into something far more dangerous than anyone anticipated. American businesses are frantically calling for de-escalation before irreparable damage occurs to both economies. The alarming reality is that continued escalation threatens to make everyday life dramatically more expensive for American families caught in the crossfire. Ontario Premier Doug Ford challenged American CEOs to get a backbone and speak out against these disastrous tariffs. His blunt assessment that Trump's policies are creating economic chaos sends a clear message that Canada won't be intimidated. Will we stand by while our economic foundations crumble? The devastating combination of skyrocketing prices, fractured supply chains, and industrial slowdowns threatens both nations. One thing is abundantly clear. The predictable Canada-US trade relationship has been shattered, and recovery seems increasingly uncertain.